12 years after independence, South Sudan continues to face chronic underdevelopment and the impact of multiple interlocking crisis drivers. Whilst conflict and violence continue to cause insecurity and displacement, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the economy has driven hyperinflation and food insecurity, exacerbating vulnerability. South Sudan is also affected by what is considered to be one of the most severe protection crises in the world, with high levels of intercommunal conflict, leading to gender-based violence and gross human rights violations. In this context, the role of education is more important than ever before for South Sudan's children, youth, and communities.
Yes, very good. Clap for her.
The South Sudan Education Cluster works to assess and respond to acute education in emergency needs and ensures education partners are responding to emergencies and meeting the needs of affected population through a coordinated approach within an agreed framework.
My name is Manuela Tiu. I work as the Education Cluster Co-Coordinator for the National Partners, and I work for UNCARE. UNCARE is a universal network for knowledge and empowerment. We're a national organization operating in South Sudan. We deliver services of primary health care, food security and livelihoods, water, sanitation, hygiene, and education. UNCARE was selected as a national co-coordinating organization of the Education Cluster at the end of 2022. So in terms of the local actors, their role has been very crucial to the education sector, especially within the cluster mechanism. Having interventions being led by the local actors, one is that they are very knowledgeable when it comes to the context, because these are communities they stay with, they come from those particular communities, and that also helps in terms of being able to identify the actual needs within those communities. The other perspective also is in terms of the cost efficiency, because most of the local actors are based within those particular localities. And what that translates into is that it's much more easier to deliver services within those communities. Looking also at the perspective of durable solutions, of course, the local actors, once they're equipped with the ability to deliver services within their communities, this also builds on their capacity, and that provides a much more longer, sustainable approach to offering services within those particular communities than having more of international agencies that are not staying longer term within the context of South Sudan. My role can have an important impact on strengthening the connections between the national and subnational levels, and my aim is to bring more focus to what partners are doing on the ground. It's important to have local partners participate in subnational coordination, because this enforces trust within the communities and also ensures collective action or responsibility by the national actors.
In my view, the national organizations are deeply rooted to the communities and basically understand the context and the challenges and the potential solutions. And therefore, their representations at the national cluster by one of their colleagues has an importance in a way that their views, the views of the community and perspective in the programming are represented.
Obviously, in a country such as South Sudan, We want to ensure that the responses that we're developing are responsive to the needs, and bringing local organisations on board in our cluster coordination structure enables us to be sure that we are being responsive to the beneficiaries and those that are receiving the support that's required, and that we're bringing another voice to the table to provide information about those needs and how they should be best addressed. I think the second thing is that as we're looking towards building more durable solutions and building capacity, it's inherent that we have that support of local organisations as part of our coordination structure to ensure that we're able to then build those capacities both at a national level and at state level for continuity of programming. And lastly, when we're talking about the effective use of resources, and in many instances, unfortunately, less resources than we need, having our local organizations on board and having that sense of being part of the structure of management, it means that we're able to make smarter decisions about how we're using those resources in a more efficient and effective manner.
Localization is so important for the context of South Sudan, and the practical example of national coordination is an area where we really want to highlight, because it doesn't only speak about the funding, where a lot of people talk about when it comes to one of the 7 dimensions of localization, but it's actually also emphasized on participation, coordination, visibility, also policy influences that national actors can have in such a platform that involve not only NGOs, but also donors, also different stakeholders, governments, local organizations, and international organizations, the entire humanitarian communities. It's important for us as a community to ensure that we collectively support and drive forward this localization agenda together.
I think as a starting point, it's very important that the cluster lead agencies update the Memorandum of Understanding as well as the terms of reference to ensure that the national co-coordination role is embedded within the mechanism of coordination. I think this is very important because even when there's a transition of the international coordinators, I think there will be no dispute as to the necessity of this role.
So the process of selecting the national organization should be very clear and transparent, and it should be shared with all the cluster members. After an initial screening by the cluster team, the members then they will go to the voting process to select the national organization.
To ensure a sustainable approach when it comes to the coordination mechanism, it's important to also look at the funding perspective. A lot of the national partners struggle with supporting the national coordination role because they lack adequate funds. So the process of having a national coordinator is as easy as ABCD. Just one, the lead agencies for those particular clusters have to show expression of interest. So once they express that they are willing to have a coordination mechanism, and then the coordinators will share that information with their cluster secretariat and then inform especially the national actors for the expression of interest. And after that, they'll provide guidance in terms of the entire process, what is anticipated in terms of the necessary documents to support the expression of interest. Then what follows that is a voting process once the expression of interest is done. And then, of course, you have voting. From the voting, and then they identify the national coordinator that will be supporting the national organizations within the coordination mechanism.
For as long as there is still need for the education cluster to operate in South Sudan, localization will be essential to improving the response. Recognizing that co-coordination with the local and national actors produces strong engagement of a diversity of actors and better coordination outcomes, the cluster lead agencies, UNICEF and Save the Children, updated their memo of understanding to allow for a national NGO to co-coordinate the South Sudan education cluster with them.
We have developed a step-by-step guidance about how you can create a national co-coordination position for your cluster. To access this guidance, click the link below this video.